Hey everyone, it's me, Stephanie Nietzsche, and today we're going to talk about short chapters versus long chapters. And I am going to call this episode The Long and the Short of It. Okay, so I posed a question on Facebook to writers and readers about chapters. I wanted to know what each preferred. If a writer preferred to write shorter chapters or preferred to write longer chapters, and it's really up to the writer. It also depends on the story, and sometimes it depends on the genre. So I also asked readers what they prefer. Do they prefer to, read shorter chapters, or, a longer chapter is okay? And again, it also depends on the genre and it depends on the writer's style. But I am going to tell you what the reader said, because there was a preference. Now, when we take these polls, it depends really on who you ask, because you could ask 100 people the same question, and out of those 100 people, if 90 of those people prefer, let's say, strawberry over butter pecan, that doesn't mean that that's right or that's the ice cream that everyone should eat. That just means that out of those 100 people, it just so happens that 90% preferred one over the other. And that's what happened here. So I did ask this question on my Facebook writer page if you want to check it out. It's Stephanie Nietzsche Writer on Facebook. And I also asked a couple of writer and reader groups. So out of the people that I asked and the people that happened to answer, there was a preference. And the preference of shorter versus longer was, can you guess? I'd like to know what your preference is as well. But the people that I asked, their preference was shorter. Now, they gave a couple of reasons why, as a reader, they preferred shorter chapters, and I'm going to tell you what they were. So one of the reasons was, if a reader wants to read before bed and knows that they have 30 pages ahead of them in a chapter, they may not want to stay up that late. Now, don't forget, if a reader reads 30 pages in a chapter, they might want to read on to another chapter. So how are they going to read 60 pages before bed, especially if they have to go to work the next day or school, or they have to be up early with the kids, or whatever the reason is that they have to be up early the next day and need a certain amount of sleep? Those chapters may be a little too long, so they may not read that particular book. Also, with the longer chapter, I know some of the readers said, hey, it doesn't matter if the chapter's long because I could just stop at page 5 or 6 and pick it up the next day. Well, guess what? Not every reader can do that. Sometimes, let's use my book, The Smoke Tree, as an example. Tora goes out with Mateo. She has a wonderful time. He drops her off in front of the house. And when she walks in, she senses that someone is there. She senses she's not alone. It's the atmosphere in the room, and she is detecting like a faint scent of alcohol. So is a reader going to stop right there and say, okay, I gotta go to bed. I don't know what happens with Tora or to Tora, but I got no time to read that, so I'm going to bed. Also, if they stop, the next day, are they going to have to reread that chapter again because they want to be, in the moment? Tora was out, she was having a great time, she's happy. Now she comes home and the atmosphere and everything has her mood. It's totally changed. It went from happiness to fear and dread. So yeah, that's another thing. If the chapter is too long, the reader may have to reread it. Now, some genres, the chapters are long, and that's what the readers expect. So that's why these polls do not always, they're not always accurate, because it really depends on the reader you ask and the genre. Now, let's say fantasy. I currently do not read fantasy. I do not write fantasy, but I am under the impression that fantasy chapters happen to be long and longer than a regular long chapter. So there is information and a lot of, description and detail that goes on in those fantasy novels. And that's what the reader wants. The reader wants a long chapter. So while the readers that I asked about short versus long did choose short, and those were the reasons that they gave. Also, if they want to, they just want a quick read, so they just want to read a couple of pages. It's really up to the reader. Then also, the writer, a lot of writers said they prefer to write shorter chapters also. They feel that if the chapter's long, maybe it's giving too much information, too much unnecessary information. I know a lot of writers, after the first draft, they want to trim that fat. And then when it goes off to the editor also trims that fat. So it really depends on the writer, depends on the style, it depends on the information. And some readers and writers said that the chapters, sometimes you can have a short chapter, sometimes you can have a longer chapter, that it doesn't always follow the same, page count or, around the same page count, because some chapters can be a paragraph. And I'm sure in some books, I've seen chapters that were one sentence. So yeah, it all depends. So if you are a reader and you like to read longer chapters, that's fabulous. And if you are a writer and you like to write longer chapters, or you're just like a little undecided. I know one of the writers posted and said she was undecided. She felt her chapters were a little long, and she did cut back on the pages. And after she read my post and the comments from both readers and writers, she said she felt better about her decision to cut her chapters shorter. So while there is no wrong answer and there is no right answer, this was a poll, and the poll I took, the readers and a good majority of the writers did prefer shorter chapters all around. Okay, everybody, I really want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. That was a little crooked. I had to fix that. And if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and subscribe, and even if you want to hit the notification, that's good too. If you want to get notifications when I make my next video. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the comments. I would love to know if you prefer to read long chapters over short chapters or vice versa. And if you're a writer, I would love to know if you prefer to write short chapters over long chapters and how everyone feels about that. Yeah. And if there's anything you would like me to cover or any polls you would like me to take in the future, please do not hesitate to let me know in the comments. All right, everyone, it's always a pleasure. I love talking about writing and reading and books, and I love to read your comments. So have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. All right, that was the long and the short of it. All right, bye.